We're really excited to have y'all here. I'll do a little intro for everybody walking in. Ellen Cassilly here, FAIA, has been leading her own practice for over 2 decades in Durham, North Carolina. Ellen has an environmental design degree from Texas A&M and a master's of architecture from Penn. She's an architect with a focus on landscape, environments, and urban vitality, and is particularly known for her involvement and incorporation of the arts in her projects. Castle House is one such project. It's an artist residency and a retreat, which continues to bring in great artists every year. If you frequent any restaurants, bars, or gardens around the Triangle, you've probably walked through something Ellen has touched. She was nominated to the College of Fellows in 2017 for her work in advancing the profession by increasing its service to society. She's also taught at the College of Design at NC State. Welcome, Ellen. Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Chris Brasier, FAIA, actually has an MBA. He attended Duke University's Fuqua School of Business after a few years in the profession. But don't worry, he's also an NC State grad. Currently works with Clark Nexon, a design director in the Raleigh office, as well as their Chief Practice and Culture Officer. He's also taught classes at Duke as an adjunct professor. And among many other accolades, Chris also was nominated to the College of Fellows in 2010 in the practice category, contributing to advancing the science and art of planning and building by advancing the standards of architectural education, training, and practice. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us. And then Anna Lynch is the CEO of Lynch Mikens, leading with dedication since 2004. She's also a proud graduate of NC State. And as you probably know, a structural engineer. Her background is in project management and engineering, and this has allowed her and her teams to transform skylines across the country. Passionate about creativity, Anna loves collaborating with clients, like designing the polar bear exhibit at the North Carolina Zoo. Outside of work, Anna enjoys reading, paddleboarding, camping, dancing, spending time with friends. She sounds super fun. But we're excited to have her perspective to round out our group of experts here. So welcome, Anna. Thank you. Cool. So we have a little bit of bios on here for y'all's reference in the future on the Miro board. A little bit more information, but I think we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
So again, this is supposed to be an informal sort of Q&A process. We have a series of questions here as we're asking the speakers some of these questions. Again, if you have questions, please use the Miro board and the sticky notes. There's a slide at the end, which we will, time permitting, sort of go over with those questions. So, but the first question for our panel is an easy one. If you all just talk about what the first job was that you all ever had.
Yeah.
And we can start with you, Anna.
Okay, first job ever. I was a bus girl at a 5-star restaurant in Clear Lake, Iowa. And my mom was a professional waitress. So my parents were both in the restaurant industry. And so I picked up plates and cleaned up the tables for rich people in Iowa. So, but I had multiple jobs at that time. I was 14, and I also cleaned rooms at a budget inn off of I-35. I learned very quickly with the jobs that I had that, I needed to get a college degree and not clean up people's dirty.
Right, yeah. So my first job was at Missouri Botanical Gardens, and I was a weeder. Very high skilled job, and then I was a painter. Are we also supposed to talk about our worst job, or is that later?
I thought about putting that in actually.
Oh, I thought that was in there. Oh, well, so my worst job, or my most frustrating job, was I was working in Paris, which sounds totally glamorous, and the office was across the plaza from the Pompidou Center. And I worked so much because my boss didn't ever want to go home because he didn't like his wife. And all we did was work. And I did not have time to go to the Pompidou Center. So I got a different job.
So very first job, I grew up as a military kid, traveled around. One of the things that I discovered living on military bases is there are standards for lawn care, and that provided an entrepreneurial opportunity to go into lawn care. And so I started my own lawn care business. That's seasonal. So second job was at a little restaurant called McCroy's. So bussing tables, similar to what Anna shared. Actually was promoted to the front line and ran the hot dog stand at McCroy's for the last 2 years of my employment there. So actually really helpful from a career development standpoint because it involved a lot of customer engagement. Just making sure those hot dogs were just right.
I also worked at a seafood restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Good.
That's an awesome little intro. But can you give us a brief overview of your career path as it relates to engineering and architecture, and what led you to pursue positions of leadership within or outside of your firms? Maybe we'll start with you, Chris.
Sure. I would say, and kind of reflecting on this question, there were two things that I reflected on. One was the people that have been involved in the development of the career path and kind of a discovery of what I'm most passionate about as kind of a guiding kind of principle. First job after lawn care and dishwashing and hot dog stand was in high school. I worked in a small firm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, Laslett and Laslett, a father-son team. I was at an arts festival, met them. They had no real kind of reason for hiring me other than I think they saw this young person that was interested in architecture, so they gave him an opportunity. That experience was invaluable because it kind of gave me some insight into what it really was to be engaged in professional practice. And I think I've carried that opportunity was given to me, hopefully to try and give others opportunity along the way. Out of college, I followed a faculty member, Roger Clark. My thesis advisor was Roger Clark, Frank Harmon, and Pat Rand. Roger was establishing a design group at O'Brien Atkins. I kind of followed him there, was there for 11 years during a really kind of robust time in the formation of that firm. Worked there with a fellow named Phil Freelon. Phil took a break, went to Harvard for the Loeb Fellowship. I was doing the MBA thing. He came back. Phil and I got together. There were 4 of us, started that practice and kind of grew it over, I think, 11 or 12 years. And then sort of fast forward through working with the national practice at Smith Group and then currently at Clark Nexon. Again, kind of the common theme was, I would say, is really being intentional about the people that you work with and doing things that you're very passionate about. I think those have been the things that have been kind of critical to any success that I've had in the profession.
Yeah, sounds good. So after architecture school, my first job out was with a construction company, and I should back up a little and say my father had a construction company and small entrepreneurial development, and I just always knew that I wanted to have my own office. It was just a given, and everybody, so I'm the youngest of 6, and we all have our own businesses. And I think the youngest sometimes gets a bad rap. Oh, that's the spoiled one. But I was definitely the broker in the family, like making deals and negotiating things back and forth. But so I worked for a construction company in St. Louis. It was they specialized in mall upfits, and totally not glamorous, but fast pace. Oh my God. I mean, you got the contract on Monday and you were ordering materials on Tuesday, and the whole project, like the longest one was like 10 weeks. And It was just like, oh my God, this is how people get ulcers. And so I thought, I like construction, I like architecture, but maybe a little slower paced. After A&M and Penn, I ended up, I had some other summer jobs in between, and I had applied to the Peace Corps. There was a war in Central America. They disinvited me, and so I went to Europe in hopes of working there, and found a aforementioned bad job. And then I got a job with Christian de Portzenpark, and it was fabulous. And I went thinking I would stay for 3 months to a year, and I stayed for 4 years. And it was great. It completely opened my eyes to all sorts of wonderful things. And so that when I came back here, I ended up getting a job with Frank Harmon and worked with him for 4.5, 5 years. And after that, I ended up, and this was very important, I ended up buying a building in downtown Durham on auction. And because of that, I had a place to put my office. Also because of that, when my office wasn't doing so well, I could cut myself some slack and maybe not pay rent that month, and then pay double a couple months later. But you can't do that in Durham anymore because everything's too expensive, nor in Raleigh. But just had a great experience working with Frank, starting my own office, and have been there for, 27 years or so.
I've never worked anywhere else, so I just started with Stroud Pence at 21, so a little different story, but I got into engineering because my parents were entrepreneurs that continuously failed. They were in bankruptcy consistently. And I thought, geez, I am not going to be an entrepreneur at all. Not happening. And so I went to the library and I looked up who made the most money, because I wanted stability and money, because my parents didn't have that. And engineering, lawyers and doctors, I hated blood and I hated reading. So engineering was left. That's how I chose engineering, and it's so wild to me now. But I was really good at math, and I was really into industrial arts. I took all the boy classes. You couldn't make me take home ec. You could not. So I've always kind of hung with the guys, and I interned for an architecture firm in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. I talked them into hiring me so I wouldn't have to go to home ec classes my senior year. And I just did drafting, and I was like, man, I love the energy. And they did like apartment buildings, but this guy kept coming to meetings, and he had a sports car, and I was like, what does that guy do? And they're like, that's the structural engineer. And I'm like, well, okay, I love sports cars. So I literally got a degree in architectural engineering because I couldn't decide. I love buildings. I didn't know if I wanted to be MEP, geotech, structural, but in architectural engineering, you learn everything about buildings. So you could engineer the entire thing, including architecture. And so I got that degree and graduated, and I really enjoyed the structural engineering piece of what I learned. And I learned also that I can't be an architect. Like, I am not as creative. And I didn't really care about light, where it was coming from, and et cetera. And I went to college at University of Wyoming. It was the cheapest engineering college in the United States. That's how I chose the school. So I've been always very strategic in every decision I've made in my life, to provide stability for myself. And it's funny because that's where I'm at now, is every decision I've made through my career probably wasn't stable. It was very risky. And so I moved from Wyoming to Raleigh, North Carolina to work for Stroud Pence because they offered me the most money, which was $40,000 a year. I didn't really care about the firm. I didn't care about what the work they did. I was like, I need stability, and I'm going to build that at 21. And, I never, ever wanted to be in leadership. I never had any goal of owning a company. I was sit down, learn how to do engineering, and keep a job. And that's what I did. And slowly I started to see other people failing. And I was willing to do whatever it took to help anyone around me at any moment. And so slowly I started filling gaps for everyone in the firm. And the Raleigh office, it got up to about 12 people, and then 2008 happened and everyone was getting laid off. And I'm like, what is happening? And I was still there. And I'm like, why am I still here? I'm not the best engineer.
You filled those gaps.
I filled the gaps. I filled all the gaps. They were like, well, Anna, she's great with clients. She's winning work. She knows how to do it. She's the best project manager. She's training all the engineers. Literally, I was a project engineer. Like, none of that was in my job description. I just was trying to help keep the company alive. And it was not my responsibility. I'm a problem solver. I see problems. I'm not like, that's not my problem. That's someone else's job. I'm like, fix the problem, train the person, do this, do that. And so slowly, positions were just given to me. I mean, I tried to quit 4 times. Seriously, I would be like, hey, I quit. I'm not doing that guy's job anymore. I love all of you. Thank you for every opportunity. Literally, they fired that guy and gave me his job, the same day. And he still works for me, actually. Okay? So that's how I slowly got into leadership. It was, okay, now you're the managing director of the Raleigh office. Now I want you to be an owner of Stroud Pence. Now I had a seat at the table in my late 20s with a bunch of owners that didn't want to change anything. And I never was a victim of any of those people at the table. I was like, if they said no to my face, I'm like, game on. I am going to talk you into understanding what I'm trying to do to help you. I wasn't like, that guy's an asshole, right? I'm like, okay, how can I grow? How can I increase my emotional intelligence to work with the people that are sitting next to me to help influence them so that they can be successful? So in 2016, I tried to quit again. And they said, if you leave, the company will go under. And I was like, wow, that's big. And I honestly never felt like I had that much leverage, ever. I was not running around with my ego going. And so in 2017, April, I closed and bought the whole company, Stroud Pence, because I said, well, if the company is going to go under, let me buy it, basically.
Yeah, totally.
And let me save it for you, for the owners, the founders. And so it's been 7 years. I'm 100% owner now of Stroud Pence. My business partner has retired. He retired 2 years ago. Not a lot of people know that. And here I am, I'm 100% owner, CEO, and I still fill the gaps. It's my job. It's a full-time job of a CEO. So whatever anyone needs, whatever gap we have, that's where I'm at.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll talk about a little bit more about that here, Anna,
Okay.
with this next question. With what are some of the key skills and qualities you found that are essential for effective management? Alan, we'll let you go first on this one, and then kind of go through.
Well, I will continue with the filling in the gaps. That is the name of the game, keeping your eyes open, seeing what needs to be done. Since my office is so small, I mean, it's a little bit different from, big guys like Clark Nixon, but, seeing what my team needs to do and helping them give them the tools to do it. So that then they feel empowered, like, hey, I really did that. Or just saying, what else do you need to get this task done? And I think just super clear expectations really lets everybody know where they stand. And also lets them know, oh, that's the expectation. I don't know X, Y, and Z. And then I'm scrambling around to help them figure out X, Y, and Z.
I'll connect this back to the mini MBA that you're going through and kind of a revelation in the program. I thought the initial reason that I pursued the MBA was I don't understand the language of business. Never had accounting, never had economics, none of those courses that are core to running a business, I didn't have any exposure to. What I discovered was those things are nice. It's good to know. Be able to be fluent in the language, that's helpful. But really what I understood going through the program was the value of team. And that it really is about being able to organize a team and to understand the strengths of that team and to try and bring them together in a way that yields success. And one of the things that sort of came out of that was in architecture school, it's pretty much you stand and you fall alone. The MBA program is entirely different. You are put into a team on day one, and you sink or you swim as a team. And one of the real kind of revelations in this anxiety about never having accounting or econ, I had partners that had accounting and econ and marketing, and what I brought was a different way of thinking. And it's really interesting. My daughter and son have recently completed MBAs, and they're now doing design thinking in business school. Excellent. Who would have thought? And I won't say the year that I went through, but it was a number of years ago. Design thinking was not a thing, and especially not a thing in business schools. And it's just a way of problem solving, right? That's kind of what we're charged with doing, is problem solving. And so part of what I took away from that was understanding my strengths, understanding my weaknesses, and really searching out partners who complemented me in what they bring to the table. And part of that involves active listening. Being intentional about listening and understanding. And I think that works both inside the practice, and it is fundamental to being successful outside the practice. I think we all our training is that we're going to solve a problem and we'll convince the client that that's the right solution. I was surrounded by lots of really talented designers that were way more talented than I was, but where the gap existed, talking about gaps, was being able to engage with someone else and to really listen and understand, define what the real problem is that we're trying to solve, and then be able to convey the solution to that problem. And so for me, that was my biggest takeaway from the business school experience, was teamwork. And the fact that you don't have to do it all. Occasionally, yeah, you're filling gaps, certainly, and being, you've probably heard of T-shaped people, right? T-shaped people have a breadth of knowledge that allows them to fill gaps at different times. But then there's an area where you have depth of knowledge, and sort of understanding what that was for me, and when I could help someone with that depth that I bring in a particular area, but then also recognizing when I just don't know, and I need to find somebody that can partner with me to solve that problem. So, and then the other thing I wanted to say about this question is really understanding the difference between management and leadership. And I think sometimes we confuse the two. Management's really important. Scope, schedule, budget, all those kind of quantitative things that we deal with. But I think increasingly, leadership is what is most important, and being able to really rally around a vision, a sense of purpose. And I think, at least what I'm seeing in the generations that are coming into the workforce today, those things matter. It's not just about understanding a P&L statement, right? Like profit and loss, or overhead, or those things are important. They're necessary they're on your dashboard, right? And you need to be able to read the dashboard, but they're not core to what I believe is necessary for success in the business world. That is about being able to inspire your people to have a clear vision of the future, and then to be able to execute on that vision.
Okay, effective management. I have 70 employees, and a lot of them are in management. I feel like probably all of you are managing someone or something. And my opinion, to be effective, you have to learn how to communicate. Communication is just a massive gap. We spend so much time assuming that the other person understands what we're thinking. So critical conversations. I absolutely refuse to listen to someone complain about someone else. I refuse, because the first question is, before they even start talking, is, what did they say when you talked to them? And they're like, what? I'm like, what did they say when you talked to them directly?
About that.
Yeah. well, I didn't. Well, then I'm not having this conversation. There's a lot of fear around critical conversations because we're scared. We're like, we're going to hurt their feelings. We don't know if we're going to say the right thing, and all the things that you tell yourself to talk yourself out of it. And then you think that you're going to elevate it, and then someone else is going to take care of it. So not happening. So just communicate. That's it. Even if you aren't going to communicate it the way that you think it should be, and maybe they're going to receive it wrong, and all the things that make you avoid it, that's what makes an effective leader and manager and mentor, because you're actually communicating, okay? And sometimes people don't like what you say, and it's okay. So that's my advice for effective communication, or for effective management. Effective leadership, I agree with Chris. You have to have a vision, and you have to really believe in it. Like, there has to be a passion behind it, because if there isn't, people see through you. It's fake. If you don't actually feel to your core that it is important to life itself, then people aren't going to follow you. So effective leadership is believing in what you're leading and actually communicating so everyone can be bought in. And I always say there's 3 steps. You can be the visionary, which is great. You have vision. Next, you have to come up with a process, right, to actually align with the vision. And then the third is you have to execute the process and hold people accountable to it. Because a lot of leaders, I see them, they're like, this is the vision, this is the process. I did a meeting and I told everyone about it, and then I never did anything about it. But no one's following it. I don't understand, right? So leadership and management, that's my advice.
That's awesome. Thank you for distinguishing those two. I mean, I feel like we talk about them as their one thing all the time. So I think that's great.
Well, and I was just point in, I got to listen to your introductions, basically because I had to drop my car off to get repaired. But I don't know if you all noticed when you were doing your superpowers and your weaknesses, almost every single one of you are really good managers, and you self-admitted it. And so you've got that taken care of. So now's the time to focus on the other stuff.
That's awesome. Next question. Based on personal experiences or observations, what are some of the larger challenges facing firm leadership in today's work environment? Maybe those things have changed over time, or they're the challenge du jour. But if you guys have thoughts on that, let's start with Chris.
So I think the professions are in kind of an inflection point, and some of the things that I see that are really significant are succession planning. A lot of folks have been leading a lot of firms for many, many years, and making sure that they're preparing the next generation to sort of transition into leadership. I think that's also connected to ownership. I mentioned my daughter finished her MBA, and she worked in the venture capital space initially, and also some private equity. I never imagined talking to her that private equity would be interested in the AE world, but they are. And so I think, thinking about how we transition ownership and doing all the things that we've already talked about doing, right? How does that continue in a world where capital will be infused into our professions? And at the same time that's happening, how do we keep the eye on the ball in terms of the things that we've all been talking about that really do get us up out of bed in the morning and keep us motivated and moving forward and doing the things that we love doing? So I think succession planning, ownership transition, retention, recruitment of talent. I mean, we're blessed to be in a place that is extremely attractive, both to young people coming into the profession, and then also attractive to competitors, right? Like when I began in my career, I don't know if John would agree with this, but O'Brien Atkins was really the only game in town. I mean, they got most of the good work. They attracted really top tier talent. And one of the things I took away from that's a really kind of basic formula. Like if you can get good work, attract great people, keep those people, and then rinse and repeat, right? Like you have really great people, you're doing really great work, you're attracting the next, yeah, and it's just like it's a beautiful kind of idea about how to develop a practice. That's really challenging in these times when it's going back to business school. It's the basic economic supply and demand, right? Like the demand for talent, the supply for talent, there's a scarcity there. And so wages are going up, fees aren't going up commensurate to that. And so there's just a real challenge from recruitment and retention. And I do think this aspect of something larger being a part of the conversation, larger being vision, purpose, all of those things I think are sort of an intangible part of that. So those are the things that I see that are really kind of challenging and that I think we'll confront and continue to confront over the next 5-10 years.
Would y'all agree with that, Anna, Ellen?
I think that's I think I'm thinking about something a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
Because I think humans are the issue. I think you all are the issue. I think that we have been spoiled rotten since COVID. I think COVID occurred and companies gave employees everything. And we are not a nonprofit. And so companies are selling to private equity because they can't afford you. You think that you deserve everything. You want to work from home, you want to work 32 hours a week, you want to leave whenever you want with your children, you actually don't want to work. People just actually don't want to work anymore. I'm working 40 hours a week, I'm burnt out. I'm like, wait, you worked 40 hours a week? Well, I had to do a lot in those 40 hours. I had to work really hard. So we are the problem. That is the biggest challenge. It doesn't matter if it's our industry or some other industry. And Chris is right. You guys are expensive, you expect more. And then someone else offers you $20,000 a year and you're like, oh, okay, so no loyalty, got it. So my hope is the economy tanks. My hope is that everything slows down so companies can take the control back. Because otherwise, firms like mine aren't going to survive. And the only companies that are going to be available are the big ones. And that really sucks. And employees don't realize that they're the ones doing it. They're the ones doing it to us. So that's the biggest challenge for our industry. We are ruining ourselves at the mid-level.
So that's why I'm glad I'm a small office.
We would have a good range here.
We are,
Good plan.
so I totally agree with COVID. It was like, everybody was working at home and there were 5 of us and I thought, this is crazy. How can we be running this office like this? And I'm like, okay, come on, we got to get back to the office. And, everybody's got 2-year-olds and 85-year-old living at home. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, let's start working in the office on Wednesdays. So we started doing that. And it was like, okay, yeah, this is working. And I thought, well, still, this is crazy. You can't run an office coming together 1 day a week. It turns out you can. And the good news is everyone who was working with me had enough experience that it kind of worked. Then hire new young person who doesn't know anything, who needs mentorship. And then that was my opportunity to say, oh, our intern, one of her conditions for working with us, her question was, how many days a week will you be in the office? And I was like, oh, perfect. So what we have now, I'm in the office Monday, Wednesday, occasional Thursday. Someone else is in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, occasional Friday. So Wednesday is our across the board day. And then everyone is sort of peppered around. But the intern, I'm really curious to do a little check-in with her to see how it's working, because she's getting wonderful individualized time with each of us. And because I always say, you know, you can talk with someone and say, you know, this is what you need to do, but there's so much information when we're having a conversation and you're overhearing it, and that's a different type of learning.
I think that goes into our next question pretty well.
Y'all are sort of leading us right into it. But how about your firm's addressed the need for mentorship? What's worked and what hasn't? Anna, do you want to start us off?
Sure, doesn't work. Doesn't work. Everyone says they have mentorship. Everyone says they have their program. Great, talked you into working there. How well does your company follow through with it? How well is it actually making an impact? It's not. It's not. It's so hard. And I'm not talking crap about my company and my employees. I never let anyone work from home ever. I think it was like 2 weeks. I made everyone come back to the office. So mentorship to me is being together, observing, learning from each other, by being next to each other. I truly believe that human connection is needed for our own pure joy and happiness as people. And so I never ever supported people working from home. And part of that was because of this mentorship. It is not a program that's written. It's not. It's people actually just being together and caring about each other enough to take the time to mentor them and listen to them, and also talking them off the cliff. Okay, and those are those critical conversations. It's constantly communicating. All the things that you think a mentorship program does, it really needs to be innate to your vision, and it needs to be constantly communicated to everyone that everyone's responsibility is to mentor and grow people. It's not a program. It's not a position. It's everyone in the firm. You're part of it. And the minute that you aren't taking the time to mentorship and grow someone, you don't work at Lynch Mikens. If you're selfish and you want to be over here in the corner by yourself, you can work somewhere else. I have no interest in that. If people aren't growing at Lynch Mikens, you don't work there. Okay? So mentorship to me is not a program. It's not a position. It's everyone's role to constantly want to grow everyone around them. Because we build people to build better, right? Every day.
Ellen?
So I will add, when I witness mentoring going on in the office, I really make a point of having a little conversation and just saying, you know, I really appreciated what you all were doing there, and that's lifting everybody up. And of course, everybody always says, you learn more by teaching. And so by explaining and helping someone, you're thinking about it in a new way.
Can I add one thing? Sorry, because that reminded me of something. Is mentorship is delegation. So we also track people's hours. So if anyone works over 50 hours, we actually tell them why they're a really bad mentor and how they're actually affecting the people below them by holding work from them. So I do a whole training and onboarding on communication and delegation, not based on what you need to do, but the impacts of everyone around you and below you and what they're actually thinking. You're taking away their confidence. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing because they're not trusting me. So I think mentorship also is like that whole delegation, because everyone kind of holds things, well, if I just do it myself, right, it will get done quicker and better. So.
It sounds like mentorship is kind of ingrained in across the board.
Yes.
Kind of communication and everything you do in the office. I'm interested to hear, Chris, what you think.
I don't disagree with what's been shared. I will say that it's like absolutely critical in our professions. We don't learn, grow, and develop without it. I think I shared the story at the beginning, right, of being offered this job in an architect's office. And that was a foundation, right? Like, I probably would not be in the profession absent that. I do think, and I agree with the kind of like the formal, like you're a mentor, you're a mentee, and Like, I get that. One of the things that we have done, and it grew out of the vision and strategic plan development and the idea of learning, growth, and development of our people being core to the practice, was something we call MyMap. And MyMap is a volunteer thing. And Jennifer can share more about it in your later sessions, but all MyMap really is, it's not like a highly formal program, but what it is a framework to facilitate conversations within a team. And those conversations are structured around, one, kind of self-realization. We talked about strengths and weaknesses, and I see that, like, you've got two of the books that I brought with me today that I was going to recommend to you. Strengths Finder, we look at strengths and weaknesses and talk about strengths and weaknesses and share strengths and weaknesses within the team. And I think, and again, I'm biased because I was a part of kind of helping to shape this, but my observation is that the conversations that result from that are really powerful conversations. And so that self-realization piece is a part of it. The other part is to make sure that we're clear about what is our vision, what are our values, and then looking for the intersection between those two things. So it's really kind of, those that know me know that I love diagramming, and it's just a really simple Venn diagram. Understanding myself, understanding the firm, and where can I seek the intersection between those two things to the benefit of both. It's really no more complicated than that. And so the conversation is the thing that I think is at the core. And the idea that it's voluntary, you don't have to do it. But I do think as a leader, you have an obligation to mentor. I can't disconnect leadership from mentoring. I don't see that. That's that's a non-negotiable. Anyway, I think we all accept that, right? So, and I would encourage being proactive to the conversation about COVID and the impact that that's had. Different sort of folks in your organization kind of have different personalities, and sometimes it requires active kind of outreach and engagement. But the value of that is, in my mind, immeasurable. Like just having those being proactive about having conversations. And I will say, from an organizational standpoint, and I'd be curious others' kind of thoughts on this. At Freelon, we were very intentional about letting, as the firm grew, I mean, starting with 4 people is very different than being 12 people or 15 people or being 30 people or being 60 people. There are thresholds where things change dramatically. So one of the things that we were very intentional about to facilitate different perspectives and bringing to the table different kind of strengths was to always have teams of no more than 8 to 10 that form kind of a unit for facilitating communication, conversation, understanding where everyone is in their growth trajectory. And as we grew, that number continued to kind of be there as kind of a guiding organizational concept. And being intentional about the composition of that group, not just being all designers. That's when I started, that's what it was. You were almost kind of like a production line. It went from design to production to construction administration. But like within these groups, design is present, technical is present, managerial capability is present. And sort of as a byproduct of that, mentoring and development of the whole person kind of just takes place. It's not a checklist, right? As Anna was kind of pointing out, it's not like, yep, did that today. But you're facilitating this engagement and this active learning, growth, and development. And the mentoring is just there.
So we have crews. So we developed crews, and we have leaders of crews. So crews of engineers. And we actually put the crews together based on personality. We don't use Strength Finder anymore. We use Culture Index. You can look it up. And we put everyone with the similar Culture Index together because we found that people were incredibly frustrated with people that were the extreme opposite of themselves, right? They cannot understand, like, why is this person so slow? Why is this person so detail-oriented? So bringing those crews together helped us immensely because they understand each other and they can communicate and be a little bit more patient because they understand themselves, right? And we focus on off-purpose behaviors. So you cannot change a personality, but you can change behaviors. All right, and so within the crews, everyone knows their off-purpose behaviors. Each one has two. And they hold each other accountable to those so you can change your behavior. So that's what we focus on, is really behavioral changes.
And that is, just to follow on, that is a part of that self-realization is personality type. We use the MBTI combined with other tools, but yeah.
Awesome. I have to write those down. So I know we're coming up close to our time. Maybe this one can be a quick one. If you could go back in time and give yourself some business or leadership advice to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell them? Ellen, why don't we start with you?
You didn't see that look on my face. I mean, I feel like I took a lot of chances in my younger years. And so, I mean, I sort of want to say, well, take even more chances. I don't know what that would look like exactly. But, you know, there are opportunities out there that you just, when I think of the opportunities I've gotten, they were totally not in a linear fashion. It was completely circuitous. But the only way to pick up on those is to keep your eyes open and not to be, I don't know, opportunism has a bad rap, but you know, you got to be on the ball and you know, everybody has a connection to lots of other people who are going to say, Ellen might be the perfect person for your fill in the blank project. So yeah, lots of chances.
How about you, Anna?
One of my strengths on the Strength Finder, I could give you all 5, but one of them was an includer. I see value in every person, literally every person. I see hope, I see the best that they can be that they can't even see. And my advice to myself is you can't save everyone. I hired just nonstop. I love underdogs so much. Like, God, I love them. But man, they sucked the life out of me a lot of years, And a lot of them are very successful now, and I'm really proud of them. But you can't save everyone. And sometimes you gotta hire slow and fire fast. So that's something I wish I would have learned at a younger age.
That's a good one.
I think on this one, and some of this probably comes from sort of upbringing, and part of being a military kid is that you move every 2 or 3 years. So you're always in a new class, right? And you're the new kid on the block. And to kind of make connections, you have to be a little bit vulnerable, right? You have to open yourself up. So I would say that is what I would, like remembering the value of being vulnerable and opening yourself up. And then also stretching a bit, like, and those are kind of connected, right? Like when you try something, I love this, like when was the last time you tried something for the first time? Like being vulnerable to go out, try something new, have confidence in yourself that it's going to be okay, and continually stretch. Like don't get comfortable. Like don't settle for status quo. Always kind of what's next. And I'm sharing the strengths. I'm a learner, and I think that is what led me to teaching. And I'm constantly reading something, and I'm not looking for a checklist, but what I'm looking for is insight into how others have done it and how they found success. And so you can read all you want, but at some point, then you got to do it, right? And that takes a little bit of courage to dare and to kind of step out there. And there are moments in your career where there may not be a safety net. Right? Like, you're just going to have to do it.
It's terrifying.
Chris, I'm glad you and we have the same number 1 strength there, the learner one. So, it's interesting. We do have a couple questions from the class. We are running short on time here. It's 4 minutes to 11. So I'm wondering if maybe we we'll compile some of these questions, and then maybe if we could shoot them off to y'all, and you might have time to respond. Or
To like one or two
one
of
or two of
them,
them,
maybe.
that way we can take your responses and kind of put them on the board, and they'll have all the some feedback on
Yeah.
it. So
Or if you see one that sings to you, you could
yeah.
jump on it, but we are getting kind of close.
I mean, I would love to answer the for Anna one.
Specific call out, yeah.
I'd go for it.
Communicate. Like, I would say to make structural engineers' jobs easier, it's, you know, you have to realize that as project managers, you guys are the ones that are talking, you're the between, right? And so the more you can communicate, the more organized you are, the more you communicate with your consultants in organized fashion instead of, oh my God, like I didn't know this, it causes a lot of stress to the consultants. And so, schedule, like, you know, we do quality control reviews, right? We need to, we're structural engineers, but you have to give us time. And it's really feels disrespectful if you give us 24 hours when we're doing structural engineering, okay? Building needs to stand up, right? It's a very high risk company to own. And so when our engineers respond to you and say, hey, we need to know, we need 2 weeks before you send these out to do our internal QC, and you're like sending us your Revit models the day before it's due, and you think we're just gonna drop everything. So just a little bit more thinking about us and caring a little bit, it's two ways, you know? And so we have our favorite clients that do that. But we're trying to train some of the clients that we see, you know, a lot of opportunity with on realizing it goes both ways, so, yeah.
Great. It looks like some of the other questions are things, yeah, we can send out things about like books and references, managing stress in business. So if y'all don't mind, we'd like to share that. Just we'll send an email, and then we'll compile this and we'll put it on the board if that works for y'all.
Okay.
Or do you want us to put it directly on Miro?
Yes.
If you want to get into Miro, absolutely, that would be
The more the
wonderful.
merrier.
Yeah. Again, we see it as sort of a collaborative forum that anybody can participate that's sort of involved with the program throughout the year. So it'd be wonderful. And I know, Chris, you had brought some references and
Yeah, I
resources.
brought my
So
reading playlist. So.
yeah, and we can take that and put that up there as well and share it. And again, just being mindful of time, we're at 10:59. So real quickly, again, just want to thank our sponsors. AIA College of Fellows had a generous grant for this program. Leadership Forum, again, sort of the genesis for what we're doing here this year. And then AIA North Carolina, which has actually helped us. You've seen the recording going on. So again, we are recording parts of the sessions and compiling a video. This is part of an effort to kind of increase the information we sort of gather here with our colleagues and peers in the community within North Carolina and regional. So it means a lot for you all to be here and share sort of your knowledge and perspective with us today.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. If you guys have any closing comments, we would love to have them, or we can go ahead and close.
I would say just know yourself.
Yeah.
Get to know yourself, understand who you actually are versus what everyone tells you you are. Figure out what you want to do and what you're passionate about, and stop listening to everyone else. So.
Now, you're not, just like you can't please everybody else, you can't design every building. There's just too many building types out there. Figure out a good one for you.
Yeah, I echo those two things to kind of know yourself. The one thing, I was born in northeastern Oklahoma, and not many people of note sort of came out of northeastern Oklahoma, except a fellow named Will Rogers. He's very kind of down to earth, kind of folksy person, and he talked about farmers have to be optimists. And I sort of adapted that in our professions, you have to be an optimist. You start with a design problem, and if the client knew the solution to the design problem, we would be irrelevant. So always remember, kind of keep that optimistic kind of outlook. We don't know what the solution is, but we'll eventually find the solution. And I always kind of go back to Will Rogers and his just kind of basic kind of guidance. You know, architects, engineers, we have to be optimists.
Especially as business owners.
Well, thank you. Appreciate y'all.